You're back here on a Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts with special guest, freelance writer Dennis Hong,
Thanks.
everybody. And this is the Mountain 107.9. We're having a lot of fun live and local in studio here in Alpine, California. And we were just discussing with Dennis kind of a little bit about his history, writing and his other hobbies, random as they may be. He's quite the Renaissance man. And I wish I had that many hobbies.
I rock climb too, actually. I don't know
Oh, man, look at this. Listing them off.
in a city called Alpine.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Mention that.
So we actually connected through crack.com.
Yep.
I went on there to one of their workshop.
Yeah, they call it the Writers Workshop.
Okay. And I posted a little kind of call for any writers that were kind of interested in being on a radio show. And little did I know there was somebody right here in San Diego.
Yep.
Couldn't ask for anything better posting.
Yeah.
I was thinking I was gonna get some really random weird responses from people.
Yeah.
But it turned out positive. So speaking of the workshop and all that, signing up for writing, I know they have an open kind of call. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. I would love to. So as I mentioned, they do have an open call for writers, which if any of you out there are aspiring writers, this is huge, because the issue with the writing industry, whether for the internet or for magazines, is that you kind of have to have an in. It's really difficult, even if you have all the credentials, it's really difficult to get a gig, a regular freelance writing gig, without knowing somebody. It's not an easy thing to do. So the cool thing about Cracked is that they will literally let anybody write for them. So the way they have it set up, they have set up what's called a writers workshop, and it's basically just an online forum. So it's a forum similar to any other discussion forum that you might see on websites, but it's you have to request access. It's not just an open forum. So you have to say, I want to write for Cracked. Let me in, and they'll let you in.
There's kind of a sign up.
Exactly. There's a little sign up process. So it does kind of filter out people a little bit. But anyway, what happens is once you get in there, if you have any ideas for articles, you pitch them, and they give you a format that they want you to pitch in. And every week there's I'm estimating a couple hundred pitches every week, and the editors for the site will come in and they will look through every single pitch. I mean, that's
Wow.
a cool thing about it, and you just don't get that. So, and they do actually have a process where if you pitch it, they have the first level of what they call the workshop moderators, and they'll take the first pass and make sure that all the pitches are formatted correctly. And if you're formatted correctly, then it goes to the next level, and that's when the editors look at it. And like I said, they have a staff of editors who will look at every single pitch. So if you want to write for Cracked, if you want to pitch for Cracked, you can bet, that's a guarantee that your pitch will get looked at. Now the flip side to that is that I think it actually makes it a lot more difficult to write for Cracked, that you really have to work hard and do the research. And like I said, it's fact-based comedy, so you can't just start making stuff up.
Can't go in there making stuff up.
You can't lie, and because they'll figure it out. So basically, when you pitch articles, you say, "Oh, this, I have an article. I have an idea for an article, and here are the facts I want to reference." You have to give links to reputable sources for. To back yourself up.
And Wikipedia, I'm guessing, isn't a good source.
Wikipedia is actually it's sketchy. It depends if it's sort of like an established fact, if it's like a historical fact. If let's say you're talking about General Robert E. Lee, which I actually did write about. It wasn't just some random thing that popped into my head.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a random reference. So that was in one of my articles we wrote about General Lee. But anyway, with something like that, you could reference Wikipedia, but if you're talking about cutting edge news or science, which is kind of, I guess, my specialty is science, then Wikipedia doesn't really work because we're talking about the latest research. So there are established reputable scientific journals that we would be asked to reference. So for example, like Scientific American, Discover.com,
of course,
NationalGeographic.com, those are all considered reputable references.
Because on the daily, I see a lot of new articles. So as you say, out of the hundreds or however many, go through
it's
that
hard to
process.
say. Yeah. So
there's quite a few that actually are put up daily.
Yeah, yeah. So what's interesting about Cracked is that when you pitch articles, they're always in a list format. And I know there are a lot of writers out there that have this snobbery about list for like, oh, well, I don't write list articles. Those are stupid. I want to go more in depth. But the thing about Cracked is that they are all in depth. They're lists, but if you read each entry, it's not just, top 10 movies that had professional football player in them.
Yeah.
There's always some sort of interesting observation or what we call a cracked twist that goes with it. So when you write the list entries for Cracked, there's more to it than just listing information. You're making a clever observation about what it is. So, for example, not the movie, but the article that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's 6 deadly injuries that you think you'd survive thanks to movies. So it's not a regular list. It's not a list of common movie injuries that you see. It's a list of movie injuries that they portray very nonchalantly in movies, but would in real life kill you. So there's always that extra twist, that element that we have to add. So basically, then to kind of go back to pitching, you have an idea, and a good part of the work actually entails coming up with enough entries for your premise. So you can't just come up with the premise, you have to come up with the 6 entries to go with it. And so they always ask for at least 6 entries. And that way, sometimes when it's published, there's only 5, but that just kind of gives them
at least they kind of have some to pick through.
Exactly. So they want the option to be able to cut one if one of them turns out to be kind of weak. So that actually, it does end up to be, I would say, probably the biggest chunk of time is putting together the research, formatting it properly, backing it up and citing all the sources. And then once you pitch it, so like I said, the first wave is the workshop moderators will come in and they'll make sure that everything's formatted properly and cited properly. And then they send it to the next level, which is where the editors come in. And then the editors come in and they'll take their first pass at it. And they'll give you feedback on it. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I really like this premise. This is kind of a cool premise. And I liked your entries number 1, 3, and 4, but 2, 5, and 6 seem kind of weak. So we're going to ask you to replace that. So then you kind of go back and you
then it starts all over.
You keep 1, 3, and 4. So you're back at square 4, I guess, right? Because you have 1, 2, 3 down, and then so you just keep doing that, and basically then once you have found replacement entries or we've gotten feedback and you have listened to their feedback, then you resubmit it or you just update it and say, okay, I've updated the entry. You go through the process again. The editors come in again, and you just keep doing that until you get
fully approved.
Exactly, and it's kind of cool because they when they approve it, they always make it nice and bolded. And it's in red. So when you see the red,
good.
it's like a little positive reinforcement. It's very Pavlovian. When you see the red accepted, you start drooling a little bit. You're like, woohoo! I made it. So once it's accepted, they give you 2 weeks to write it up. And I think it is kind of ironic, but I personally find that the writing part is actually the easiest part, because at that point you've done so much research, you know
right
that
there.
topic.
Yeah.
You just need to put the words together. So the hard part is the research and finding the interesting information. So then you write it up and you send it in, and that's basically it. The editors will work on it and fix it up for you, and it runs usually in about anywhere from 3 weeks to maybe I'd say a month and a half. That's where they're kind of backed up, I guess.
So one of your first approved, I would assume.
Exactly. Well, it was
obviously.
actually my first approved article.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any tries before this one?
I did, actually.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think I had 1 or 2 pitches prior to that. This might have been my 3rd pitch or so.
Okay, well, this article actually currently has 4,134,000 over that number, 1,000 views right now. 4,134,000.
The joke is that if you write for Cracked, you get more views than Shakespeare.
Oh, geez. This was
maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe it's kind of like saying we're bigger than Jesus, right?
Whoa.
We make that statement on the daily.
All right, okay.
You're in the right company. This was back from November 24th, 2010. And would you like to introduce the title and maybe that opening segment, and then we'll kind of leave them hanging
sounds
into
good.
the list.
So the funny thing is, like, I think I've written maybe 15 articles for Cracked now.
Yes.
And this is still by far my best, my most popular article. I actually made the front page of the Huffington Post with this article.
Wow.
So
Whoa,
it was
See?
kind of
Celebrity.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was definitely a good feeling, but I haven't repeated that, unfortunately.
So essentially, it's like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and you're trying to top it, but you just haven't got there yet.
Yeah. I'm trying to come up with a good analogy right now, or a good metaphor, but that works for
Well,
me.
being
yeah.
that we're both complete
Gamers.
nerds here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's good to know because Cracked is very nerdy on a fundamental
We're in
level.
good company, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, the title is 6 Deadly Injuries You Think You'd Survive Thanks to Movies. And let's face it, everybody knows that movies stretch reality a little bit. And so especially if you're watching an action movie, you'll see the hero jump off the roof of a building and chase down a criminal and jump over buildings, jump over the gap in a building. And we all know that we kind of have to suspend our belief in reality a little bit when we're watching the movies. And that's fine. The problem, though, is that sometimes Hollywood, as we probably would expect, goes a little bit too far. And when
they
it comes,
never do that.
No, of course not. They respect reality. They respect gravity. But so the problem is that they do go a little bit too far. And when it comes to portraying physical injuries to the human body, there are certain limitations that our bodies have that there's no way. It doesn't matter how. Can I say that word?
Or
all right. How tough? Well,
There we
you
go. That
That's
works.
a little bit better. I'm like, maybe I can't say that word on the air. How tough the hero is. There are certain things the human body just cannot tolerate, and that's what this article is about. Is about things that you see in movies that people just walk off or just brush off, but in real life, it would probably kill you.
Right on. That's what you guys have to look forward to in this next segment. Right now, we're going to take a short time out, and when we get back, we have more of freelance writer from Crack.com, or for Crack.com, Dennis Hong here. This is a Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts. This is 107.9 FM The Mountain. Stick right there.